The Crucible, 1996 film starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder. It's a retelling of the infamous Salem witch trials that happened at the tail end of the 17th century in Massachusetts. If, like me, you're unfamiliar with the story, hundreds of people were accused of witchcraft and pacting with the devil. Wrongly, as it turns out, who could have thought, and 19 of those people have been subsequently hanged. It's one of the most prominent actual historical examples of mass hysteria, a situation where a peaceful community let itself be torn apart by false accusations, irrational fears, and perhaps most importantly, religious extremism and zealotry. The film documents the story of the trials, and as far as I'm aware, it's a pretty faithful representation of the actual events, even featuring characters who actually existed, real people. Daniel Day-Lewis plays John Proctor, a farmer and husband to one of the eventually accused women, whereas Winona Ryder is Abigail Williams, a young girl who is the leader of the group of accusers, and as one of the fictionalized elements, also has a romantic history with John, which increases the tension there. I don't think there's a point to explaining the story any further. You can pretty much guess how it goes. I would much rather focus on saying just how amazingly the Crucible portrays that human tendency to become a violent mob very quickly. That I think goes especially for the uneducated and strongly religious, which is, exactly the kind of crowd that this whole affair applies to. People who are very easily manipulated through their fear and faith, who are willing to throw away reason at the slightest mention of God. It's all shown in such a realistic way. It's not overblown in any way, and it's almost crazy and almost scary. Not in the typical horror sense that you have skeletons jumping out at you, but in the sense that it's terrifying to think that regular people are capable of turning against their own neighbors so easily and with so little proof. I think every element of the film clicks, from the writing through acting. The performances are great. I found it surprising, especially how quickly I began to hate Winona Ryder's character, despite just recently seeing her in a sweet, innocent role in The Age of Innocence. And finally, the cinematography. I think the camera work is really solid, especially the dolly movements in scenes where the accusers are pretending that they see or sense some demonic presence, and the camera often reacts to those things by moving like something is actually happening, thus kind of fooling the audience into thinking, hey, maybe there is something to it after all. So it all just works. The film is clearly a product of a lot of passion. And speaking of passion, a couple of pieces of trivia regarding Daniel Day-Lewis that I have learned. He is famous for his method acting and staying in character for the entire duration of making a movie. For this film, he actually built the house that his character lives in by himself, and then proceeded to stay in it for the entire duration of the shoot without ever showering or taking a bath to help immerse himself in the role more. Crazy? Perhaps, but it does make for a great story and ended up as a fantastic performance. It's kind of a shame that The Crucible kind of flew under the radar and isn't as widely known as it deserves, because it genuinely is a terrific film, even if it is kind of forgotten today.